good. Welcome, everyone. Good to see so many in the gallery tonight. I will call the meeting for the Monday, April 28th meeting of council to order at 5:31. You all had an opportunity to review the agendas. The items of note with respect to the consent agenda. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I have nothing to pull out and no one else jumped to the mic, so I will move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Very good. I do not see anyone else, so please go ahead and vote on that quickly. It is unanimously in favor. Councillor Connick hope to be here a little later on. That is all in favor, as I said. For the overall agenda, it was notified of one addition. Councillor Ross had a notice of motion, which would be item 7.1. We can add on our agenda, hopefully, or consider at least, and anyone else? Seeing none, I will move the agenda as amended. Everybody is not going to help me out here. And I don't see any lights on, so please go ahead and vote. And likewise, that is unanimously in favor as well. Thank you. We do have a few presentations, 4 to be exact, this evening, and we're going to start out with the Historical Society. And I see that the executive director, Daniel Becker, is here with us and ready to roll on a request for a summer student support. And before you start there, CAO Gowdy.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I just wanted to preface these 4 presentations with a recommendation to council that if there is something in one of these presentations or more than one they'd like to see brought back, we would recommend making a resolution to bring it back with a request for decision so that we can bring you any information you'd like to consider and deliberate the item before you.
Appreciate that, CAO Gowdy. Well, it's nice to have that information in our packages. Quite often there's things that are added during live presentations that require a little more thought and input. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Mr. Becker, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm just doing this presentation today to the City Council and to City of Lacombe for a proposal for a joint internship project program. The first of which would be essentially this year. And I'd like to just go through the presentation because I only have 15 minutes and I have to get through a lot of stuff. So just a summary of the points. Getting through needs, liabilities for insurance and security, needs, summer staffing, project proposal benefit overview, and then the pilot project, a general breakdown. So primarily our primary needs are the Lacombe Museum opens the Michener House Museum and Blacksmith Shop Museum each year from May long weekend to Labor Day in September. This equates to 16 weeks of summer operations. In 2021, the museum also took on operating the Flatiron building at the same time. And that is open year long. When summer operations are open, the ideal staffing for each location is a minimum of 2 per site alongside the 2 operational staff we currently hire. This means that an additional 4 contractual staff members must be hired each summer to ensure that these museums are open to the public with minimum staffing. The 2 primary reasons for this are health, safety, HR, and OHS. This ensures that our staff can take appropriate lunch breaks, temporary leave, and we ensure that any emergencies such as theft, fire, flooding, etc., are appropriately supported by other staff members. The second consideration is insurance and access. For insurance reasons and to ensure highest levels of access, the museum must ensure that at least one paid staff is on site whenever any sites that have artifacts within them are open to the public. Each of the 3 sites have significant artifact collections within them. And both the Michener House and Blacksmith Shop are registered heritage sites, so any loss due to understaffing while open would be generally detrimental for the society. In 2024, the Lacombe Museum hired 10 summer students in total, which was a lot. The total cost for this many students came to roughly $113,000. The funds needed for these positions came from federal and provincial matching grants, Young Canada Works and Canada Summer Jobs. They provided just over $79,000 to pay for these workers. However, because these are matching grants, the remaining $34,000 came from our core operational revenues. This paired with other projects put the Lacombe Museum at a $24,000 deficit for 2024. In order to ensure financial sustainability for 2025, our organization has reduced its summer staffing team to a maximum limit of 5 staff. The museum has received notice from granting bodies that they have been approved for 4 positions. The total cost for these positions will be $50,070. Funding that has been provided will amount to $31,500. In order to hire enough summer students for 2025, the museum must provide $18,570 out of its core operational revenues. Just to review on liabilities and security needs, with examples from particular case studies, Lacombe Museum holds within its collection 221 Roland Michener artifacts. In 2023, Waddington's auction house held a Roland Michener estate sale online. This is actually one of the most significant estate sales of Roland Michener in a very long time. There were 117 items sold. The total sale was valued at $167,954. The mean value of the items was $1,435. This means that based on these sales points, 221 objects within the Lacombe Museum's collection, it is generally fair to assume that the value of the Roland Michener collection could be placed at $317,135. As you can kind of see from these slides up here, there were some items that were of extremely international significance, and the Lacombe collection is not without similar items. There's quite a few items that are gifts from Prince Charles, the Shah of Iran before the Revolution, and several other items that could easily be worth $50,000 to $75,000. So these are collections that are of national significance, international significance, arguably. And without even considering the financial and cultural losses realized, if the museum were to lose any of these items, it could prove detrimental to the organization and its goal of operating a historic site and museum. For example, a lot of federal and provincial granting bodies require letters of support for applications. Should the Lacombe Museum experience significant loss of its collection, this would most likely lose quite a bit of willingness from the museum and heritage community to support us in this way through letters of support. This is why it is incredibly important that we ensure that our public, our sites are staffed when we are open to the public. And this, I'm sorry to be so intense with those numbers and everything, but just to show the importance of making sure that our public sites are accessible and secure at the same time. As I had mentioned before, in 2024, the museum had hired 10 summer students and experienced a significant deficit for the year. In 2025, we'll be moving to a far smaller staff complement to try to ensure we are more financially viable. However, even reducing our staff complement to our minimum needed size for operations still puts financial stress on our organization. In total, the organization receives $125,000 and $125,010 from city and county combined. I'd also like to note and give special thanks to Dan Alquist, who rents the back of the blacksmith shop. He gives us $10,800 a year. Before any confirmed grants for the year, the museum starts with a core revenue base of $135,810. The salaries for myself and the community engagement coordinator equate to $112,368. This means that before any additional grants are won for the year, the organization only has $23,442 to use for matching outside grants and covering general operating costs. With the 4 with 4 summer positions confirmed for 2025, with a total of 18,570 needed to fund these positions from core operational revenues, it leaves the museum with $4,827 to cover office and administrative costs. I forgot to go to the next slide because I was too in the moment. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'd like to provide this information after, if that's possible. As I had mentioned before, I believe the previous slides have presented one of the museum's largest challenges since expanding operations. How does the organization ensure that the public can access its historic sites and receive history-focused education through exhibitions, events, and programming, while also ensuring that its sites are secure and the organization's finances are managed sustainably? The project I am proposing today is designed to address the challenge by supplementing the unsustainable summer staff costs with support from the city through a joint internship pilot program. By structuring the request for this specific financial support as a joint internship, the museum is able to not only deal with these costs, but it also allows us to increase cross-organizational continuity between the City of Lacombe departments that have shared goals with the museum. It increases the depth and value of the summer employment experience by the students looking to increase their employability. It increases City of Lacombe staff awareness of museum services and direct collaboration with our staff. It also provides the City of Lacombe access to staff that can be used for tasks that don't require a large amount of attention or experience, but could assist in increasing performance. Last slide. The tentative proposed structure for the internship would be as follows. City of Lacombe would provide the Lacombe Museum with the funds needed to match the grants received for 2 summer students based on YCW funds awarded for 2025. This would amount to $8,524 for our archival intern position. This position would be employed from May to December, and $3,596 for the events and program and assistant position. This position is employed from May until the first week of September. In total, the amount we would be requesting is $12,125 for the complementary amounts for those positions. Each position would be placed in a corresponding department, and that could be negotiated with the administration, talking about that and strategizing where they could fit. Each position would work at city offices 1 of the 5 work days scheduled for them. Because the Michener House and Blacksmith Shop are open on Saturday and Sunday, it would be ideal if their work day was Wednesday every week. The museum could oversee hiring, but obviously because there's integration into city, we'd also want to give city considerations for those sorts of things. Onboarding and payroll requirements, we could oversee. Interns will report absences for city days to both the museum and their city supervisor, with generally a monthly check-in process with the city for any performance issues or anything like that. The specific departments of each intern can be discussed and decided upon between city and museum staff, but recommended areas would be archives records for the archives intern, just because it would be great to get our ducks in a row on both sides, and then hopefully with the events and programming assistant working directly with events staff at the City of Lacombe. And that is my presentation. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Becker. I guess just for some clarity, timing through the year, when do you normally prepare budgets?
Pardon?
What time of the year do you normally prepare
October.
budgets? October.
October.
So I guess the glaring question is, then we're kind of halfway through the cycle here. What has resulted in this appearing before us now?
Primarily the amount of summer positions we could apply for because of the budget we created for 2025 and the amount of students we got. We just simply we were waiting for confirmation on these. We didn't know what we were going to get or how much money we would get, because the allotment that Young Canada Works varies from 50% to 75%. So until they've confirmed the amount, we can't really come to the city with a solid number.
Okay.
So the number I'm coming to you today with is literally the amount. So yeah, it's difficult.
And has the processes changed a little bit from years past then?
No.
Oh.
It's I don't know what they've done before I came in. I came in June, so
okay. Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I heard you say that Canada's Summer Jobs is a matching grant. In my experience,
It's not for not-for-profits.
Okay.
If you're not-for-profit, you get 100% of the minimum wage,
correct.
but that's $15 an hour.
Correct.
So it's,
I just,
we pay out $15 an hour, but the other ones, that's minimal
Yeah.
to make up. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Dallas.
I guess this one's more for administration. Have we ever participated in a program like this where an employee works for two different organizations?
Yeah, we have an arrangement like that with Echo Lacombe. So we have a shared position there. That's the only one that comes to mind, but I'm sure it's something we could look at and bring back some options for council if you're interested in it.
Very good. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Becker.
Thank
I'm
you,
sure
Mr.
that
Mayor.
administration will be in contact. Councillor Hoekstra.
thanks, Mayor Creasy. So you said a resolution earlier. I guess I would be like to see how this could work out with the city and benefit attractions in our city, like the flat art. What were you saying? It was the museum and the Michener House that are open then on the weekends.
And I expect that motion you're referring to can perhaps maybe apply to some of the other presentations too. So whether or not you choose or council chooses to wait till the end, either or, whatever your preference is. In any event, the item 4.2, and I see that Chair Gish has arrived on time as always. Appreciate that. For the 2024 Crime Severity Index and LPS annual report, along with Chief Lauren Bloomhagen from Lacombe Police Services. Chief Bloomhagen, you've appeared many, many times in this room before, and I would expect this perhaps could be one of the last. On behalf of the community, I want to thank you for all the positive changes that you've been responsible for our community. One of which, from the numbers that I read, would be our crime severity index. Your time and efforts and whatnot towards our community truly are appreciated. So thank you for your service. But you're not quite done just yet, so the floor is yours.
Thanks. We're pleased to present the 2024 annual report. It always looks funny because we're in April, but presenting on last year, but it takes time to gather everything together and it takes time for the severity indexes to come out. So of course, the point of our annual report is for us to consolidate and brag a little bit about what we've been up to for the year. We're pleased to present it to you and just remind the city and remind the community about what's happening in the police service. We did a lot last year. There was quite a list. I went through my agendas and all of my notes and wrote, they had to put it in columns, how much we did at the police commission last year. And so I won't go into all the details. The city has been along for the ride as we've gone through. We've had bylaw updates. We've been reacting and responding to changes under the Police Act with the province. We've got victim services now within the service rather than on its own. And just, I think a culmination of efforts, as you've indicated, is showing the growth that's happened within the services as we're all reacting to the modern day. I'll leave it at that and let the chief highlight some things from his message, and of course here for questions.
Thank you. Within the 2024 annual report for the city, I won't go through all of the fine details of the report. I'll try and sum it up and stay within our timelines. However, as Chair Gish referenced, it's a busy year, and this was the final year of the commission and police services 4-year strategic plan cycle. And as I presented to the commission recently, we are on track on all our priorities. Our focus has been for the last number of years exemplifying excellence in policing, recruit and retention, reducing crime and victimization, strengthening community partnerships, improving traffic safety, and excellence in policing service delivery. So as we go through our statistics, we have achieved our goals in all of those areas, and we're definitely in a desirable position across the province when we compare to other municipalities and other police services. Our current complement of staff is 25 members, 2 of those being secondments to the Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team, one in investigations and the other one working on a child exploitation investigative team. Some of our numbers, our overall number of 5,268 calls for service. We noted a 10% decrease overall. However, to be upfront and transparent, number of our reportings come from collisions and those types of activities. The province did raise the threshold for reporting collisions to $5,000. So any of those below 5,000 that used to be at 2,000, we aren't reporting or being called to those types of collisions at this time. So that does account for a part of that decrease. However, when we do go through the overall statistics, we're seeing decreases in nonviolent crimes, property crimes, and those types of offenses that I'll get to later. But part of our strategy is remains, as it has always been, our proactive approach to policing, being out there, being visible, and 24-hour policing in response to the public. So we saw a 24% decrease in property crimes, 41% decrease in drug offenses, and 35% decrease in other criminal code offenses. I'll get into the statistics farther into the report. I already commented on our total staffing resources for police resources. We still remain with 9 full-time staff, 2 permanent part-time, and 7 casual civilian support staff. This is while this is representative of the services we provide with our dispatching and also our monitoring services for CPO agencies. In 2024, we transitioned from a board-based victim services unit based under the province that is now integrated directly into the police service. We've actually noticed a lot more victim services involvement and I think better service delivery to the community as a whole. With our CPO monitoring, or community peace officer monitoring, we started with a handful of agencies. We have expanded that to 21 CPO agencies across the province, as far north as West Loch, east to and north to the county of Beaver. The 21 CPO agencies in total with 45 CPOs that we are monitoring for safety purposes, and that service continues to grow year after year. Just going to flip through. I mentioned some of the statistics. When we get into the property crime and other statistics, I just wanted to highlight we did notice an increase in frauds. And this seems to be a trend year after year, our internet and telephone frauds, victimization of some of our seniors and other community members. So what we have started is, as cybercrime is a trend that is growing, it has been here for a while. Our focus was on child exploitation originally. We are training our members on the initial skills to deal with cybercrime as a whole, because it is obviously a big part of the criminal networks in this day and age. So we are seeing more victimization in those types of criminal activities. So we are introducing new training for our members and liaising with other agencies to ensure that we can address those types of criminal behaviors, and hopefully in the future we can see some reductions in frauds. The other area that we were up marginally was in the area of mental health. This has been a concern for a number of years now. We have put measures in place, so our increases, our increase for last year at 0.5% is actually fairly significant for us, in that previous years we were seeing much larger increases. So some of the strategies we put in place in the last few years appear to be helping. However, this is an entire community governmental healthcare issue that we are still coordinating responses to mental health and addiction type of issues. When you look at crimes against person, we did see an increase in minor assaults over the previous year, and we're up over a 5-year average. These types of assaults range from minor scuffles in licensed premises to schoolyard behaviors is typically. With our harassments, many of those are over the phone or the internet with the use of social media. That's another area where our focus on dealing with criminal activity over the internet is a focus. And our threats as well. A lot of these types of threats are in relation to sometimes spells of violence, but also in the area of online threats and victimization through social media. When we look at our collision data, overall there's 171 collisions reported last year. I already explained the difference in statistics and the decrease due to the change in the threshold for reporting collisions. However, we still notice the same trends, and our high collision locations remain the same. And we have shared that data with the city to look at maybe infrastructure issues or work together on solutions that we may or may not recognize currently.
Chief Mohigan, just one item for clarity. With those stats, especially collisions, whatnot, is that only within municipal borders, or for ones that occur on Highway 2 that what you respond to, are they included?
Only within the city of Macomb.
Okay, thank you.
And overall, like I said, we did see reductions. There was a slight increase in hit and run collisions from previous years. And at this time, I don't have any explanation for why that is. It was up by 3 in total, so it's a fairly slight increase. And many of our hit and run collisions are happening in parking lots at local businesses and those types of things. So sometimes the offender, we might say, doesn't even know that they've been involved in the collision. As far as responding to the community and community priorities, that has always remained a priority for us, and our reliance on our statistics on this goes back to our community survey of 2023. We run those surveys every 2 to 4 years, and we didn't run one in 2024, but overall our support from the community is very favorable. Some of our performance measures, and I report this to the commission on an annual basis. We utilize key performance indicators or KPIs in our reporting in all the areas: well-governed, managed budget, service strength, crime management, and community integration. And as I say, we have met our targets in all of these areas. As you're well aware, and as you're presented to at the end of the night, I'm sure, with the managed budget, our expenditures are right on track. However, some of our revenues fluctuated that caused some difficulties as far as our budget. We had street check reporting in here. This was a requirement of the government on how we conduct checks when we speak to individuals on the street, that we are following a number of guidelines set by the province and that we report on it annually. However, as far as a street check, as it's defined by the province, we don't practice street checks anymore as they're defined by the province. However, we do talk to people with our utilizing our authorities, and we classify them as they are, depending on the circumstance. And we have complied with that requirement with the province. As far as public complaints, 2024, we only received 2 community complaints, and neither of those complaints met threshold under the for misconduct under the police service regulations or the Police Act, and were dismissed. We still have one outstanding matter from 2022 that's before the Law Enforcement Review Board, and we will await the decision from the review board. 2024, we had a number of long service awards and recognitions for our members, and those are as per the report without going through all of them because it is a fairly lengthy list. However, we're happy to see that many of our members are receiving long service awards, speaking to our retention and our advancement in class. With the community involvement, we still continue, and our focus is heavily dependent on our school resource officer program that reaches out to all the schools and the youth within the community. It would be hard to find a better platform to integrate with our youth in the community. That program is very supported by the service and has value to our entire community. Our victim services unit, as I explained, was brought under the police service umbrella, and they followed up with 408 files providing support to 1,042 individuals in 2024. For victim services, that program is funded through a grant program through the provincial government. We also held our Kids and Cops program in the summer, which was a success as usual, and we are currently in the planning stage for that program for July of this year. Lacombe Community Watch Association, unfortunately, because of volunteer base and changes with many of the programs, they were dissolved in 2024. However, we are hoping that some of the crime prevention initiatives and programs that that group assisted with will be revived in the coming years. And that is the Macomb Police Commission and the Macomb Police Service 2024 annual report.
Thank you very much. I found it interesting under one of your key performance indicators. Number one was well governed, so largely responsible by the person sitting next to you as the chair of commission.
I got to pick the order.
Perfect. And well deserved then. I saw in your report there a picture of you smiling. How many years now as chair?
I think this is my sixth year as
Sixth?
chair.
Okay. I just couldn't help but notice that. It's good to see that you're still able to smile, because I know it's an onerous job on behalf of the community and it's appreciated. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns for this report? Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a question about traffic violations in particular. So I recognize that most of the statistics that you shared are relevant to, like, it's calls. People are calling in, it's whatever the case may be. Statistics down in that's a good thing. Something like traffic violations, however, aren't quite exactly the same type of statistics, because that generally, I mean, it could be something that's called in, but quite often it's something that an officer is recognizing while they're out on patrol. So I'm just wondering, just to put it into context, you've given us a number of years here of traffic violations, both non-moving and moving. Would you say that traffic enforcement has remained steady over the years, increased, decreased? Just wondering at the correlation between, the perceived, amount of effort that's put towards traffic enforcement versus these numbers, these statistics.
When our members aren't involved in other activities, they're definitely, there's an expectation that they will be doing self-generated traffic enforcement. Also, our members are out on the street 24/7, so they're proactively checking vehicles for violations, but there's a lot more that comes of that as well. So what we are noticing in that entire realm is within our community is a lot of criminality comes from other communities, and that passes through our community. So there is a heightened focus on that as well. So we may or may not be doing specific traffic duties, but doing overall policing duties. We are seeing firearms, larger seizures, a number of events that are very time consuming that we have to deal with, and there's always disclosure, and the time spent on a file is greater than what it once was. The other thing in 2024, and it's mentioned in the report, but I didn't expand on it, so I'll take the opportunity. Part of the provincial mandate was to move to body-worn video, so which we support. It adds to accountability, but there's an evidentiary side to that, and unfortunately, it takes more man hours. So we have some of these components in our job that are taking more man hours and taking time away from time on the street. So we're still finding or learning, trying to find that balance, but on any given day, traffic enforcement is one of the primary duties of our members.
Thank you. And just as one follow-up then as well, could you give a few examples of what non-moving violations are? I definitely, as a counselor, and I'm sure it probably echoed around this table, many people talking things about, speeding or, not stopping for pedestrians. Like, those are all moving type of violations that are obviously very obvious to the average person. Could you give me some examples of non-moving violations?
In a nutshell, a non-moving violation is something that will not cause an accident. So if it's a moving violation, it could potentially cause a collision. So a seatbelt violation is a non-moving violation because it would not be the cause for a collision. where a driving while distracted would be a moving violation. So a equipment violation would be a non-moving violation. You know, the vehicle be moving, it wouldn't be the cause for it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This is just in regards to the school resource officer. It says a full-time resource officer allocated with Wolf Creek Public Schools. Wolf Creek Public Schools pays for that resource officer. Is that correct?
There's a cost sharing. Wolf Creek School Division pays 50% of the cost. The County of Lacombe, because there's county students coming into the Wolf Creek School Division that attend school in Lacombe, they pay 25%, and then you pay 25% out of the police budget.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, my question also is in regards to traffic violations. Has there been any increased enforcement around the schools? I know a lot of people were asking me about it, so.
It's dependent on time. There's an expectation that during the school hours, the members will be out there, and they are out there during school times, unless they're pulled away to other duties. But
Now, the numbers that we're looking at here, those numbers didn't meet the budgeted numbers. Is that correct?
No.
No, they did not. Okay.
There's a number of factors that come into play on.
Anyone else? Thank you both for taking time to come and present to us. We always appreciate hearing about the previous year's activities, and keep up the good work.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Creasy.
Next up, item 4.3 in your agendas for the Lacombe Public Schools Enhancement Society. Request for playground funding. We have Pam Dodora, the chairperson, and Renee Spelt, vice chairperson, and representing Team Jigger is Jason Lund. Welcome to the three of you. Just remind you to please use the microphone for the benefit of those watching online and behind you in the gallery. And whenever you are ready to go, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. I'm Pam Dodora. I'm the chairperson of the Lacombe Public Schools Enhancement Society. Getting a little nervous tonight, so please bear with us as we kind of get our legs under us here. My name is Renee Spelt, and I am the vice chair. And we have Jason Lund with us here too, who is graciously has been working alongside us the last little bit, trying to support us in building an accessible playground. So first of all, we just wanted to be thankful for the opportunity to speak in front of council about something that we've been working very hard on and we're just very passionate about. And some of you may have heard about our project already, but here we are because we're searching out for as much support as possible. Yeah, so our society is, as of May, a full year in the works. How we started was our school parent council had approached us to replace some playgrounds, and unfortunately schools are very limited on how you can fundraise and what you can fundraise for. So we weren't making very much headway as a council, so we decided to create our society. And with our society, we have a few more doors we can open and opportunities, but yeah. Specifically, when we created the society, we had kind of a vision not just to focus on what we're doing at J.C. McCormick currently, but to carry this society forward, because as our kids grow up, our kids are at the school from K to 3, but there's needs at all the schools and the public schools in Lacombe. And so we kind of decided to create the society because after we complete one project, we'd like to follow our kids and the other students in Lacombe to provide that support. The society is able to do things like casinos and fundraise in ways that councils cannot because they're bound to the school. So this gives that kind of arm's length. I really thought that our mission as a society kind of fit with the vision of Lacombe as I was kind of peeking around on the website. Currently, I saw in your strategic plan that you guys, the vision is that you want to grow through collaborative and empowering partnerships. The city of Lacombe is a desirable community to visit and a vibrant and healthy community to live in. And I really think that is true. And I think our society would like to help contribute to that. Just like in your strategic plan, you guys say, specifically, you want to support the community by maintaining a vibrant, healthy, and safe community. And the accessible playground that we're looking to build, I really think fits into that strategic plan. So going forward, there's 4 playgrounds at J.S. McCormick, which are hitting the 40-year mark of use at the school. They no longer meet safety requirements. The division has been trying to maintain them as best as possible, and they essentially need to be replaced. The report specifically states that there is a need for complete replacement. Repairs are no longer economically feasible. So as they try to replace the parts, but the amount that needs to be done to maintain and bring these up to safety code is so far that it's actually just worth replacing them at this point. So not only is it for safety, but just economically feasible. They need to be replaced.
So unfortunately, with Alberta Education, there is no funding through Alberta Ed for playground replacements. There is for brand new school builds, or if you're renovating a school, adding on to it, but there is nothing for current schools that have been built in the past who A, don't even have a playground, or B, need playgrounds to be replaced. And so there has been a question about property taxes that have come up quite a bit. And property taxes, they do go towards Alberta Education. However, Alberta Education disperses those, and there is no dollar allotment to playground or any kind of infrastructure like that for schools. The school division has committed to providing in-kind support, which is extremely helpful and can help, like, not only in the moment, but in the future as well. And then it can be leveraged as cash donations as well when we're applying for grants. However, there is no financial funding available for playground replacements. So
the school division also is committed to, has given us permission to build the playground, and they've committed to inspecting and maintaining the playground long term. And it's just something we're thinking about, is that itself is a costly endeavor if you think about them maintaining those playgrounds for 40 years. So that commitment in itself is, they have done a great job like holding these playgrounds as they are, and we're just at the point where the funds need to be done. And I don't know, the newest playground there, I think, is probably the Gord Bamford playground, which now is 13 years old, or I can't remember, it's 13 or more. So it is time for kind of to keep moving forward with this instead of waiting until all the playgrounds are at that point. So essentially, we're here today because we've been kind of facing some complex challenges and red tape, as to say, is to having a lot of funding or being provided funding or support. We do know, we've been told that the division and municipality, the city of Lacombe, they were at odds about this building of the playground. And we kind of feel like we're been stuck in the middle of it. We feel at the heart of this is the playground for our kids. The kids don't belong to the school or just to the city. They belong to both places, and they're members of both. So once again, with the support of the division and some of the support that we've been building in the community, we're here tonight asking for your support also. One of the things is not just financial support. The support of the city means more than that for us. Businesses in town, grants we apply for, individuals, they're looking for the city to set the precedent in whether this playground is going to go forward and get built. For example, we've been told when I reached out to the county that the county would move forward with support once the city has shown or committed to that support also. So just that precedent because of where the playground is being built. We've also had similar inquiries from local businesses when we reach out about what is the city doing. And so this support isn't just about financial, it's kind of that moral support going forward too. We do understand that money is tight for everyone. We know that individually, in businesses, and at all government levels, but we truly believe this is an investment that will pay off for years to come. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. So our playground at JS McCormick is like the hub of our community. It's very central located. It's close to downtown. It's close to the schools, obviously. And it is a widely used playground, not only from the school and the students, it's also a community use playground during weekdays, weeknights. Our user groups, such as baseball and soccer, use it. It's not just a school playground. It is a community playground, and that is how we see it, and that is how we would like to present it, because it is. It is used daily. It's also used by like the neighboring families close to that area too. It is a very central playground and a very, I would say, first choice playground for a lot of our families in the area.
If you've ever been to the playground, like outside of school hours too, you'll see like daycare groups use it, after school care. There's teenagers there. There's visitors from the community because it is the closest playground to our downtown core too. So that's kind of the place. On top of it, just a few statistics is that 1,000 students use our playgrounds in that area 200 days a year. This includes upper elementary and GS McCormick. This is approximately 75% of the kids this age that attend school, because Terrace Ridge is a much smaller school. So GS McCormick is the hub of where our kids go. It also serves lots of the county kids or any kids that want to take French immersion. So that includes some kids that are bused in from Blackfalds or surrounding areas. So it is a very important place. In this group, there's at least 75 students that have disabilities, and some of the equipment that we have is just definitely not accessible to them. The Gore Bamford playground is there in the back. There is still some accessibility issues with that. Currently, there's no sidewalk from the school to that playground, which is something that we are looking at requesting the division to fix. So someone in a walker or wheelchair actually cannot really, like, depending on the grass or what kind of conditions there are, like in the winter time. So this playground will be placed on the east side of the school. That way there'll be accessibility on both sides of the school. That school, 500 students sometimes will be out at recess at one time. So that means classes are spread out. If your class is, say, situated to the one side, that means that you don't have an accessible playground. Whereas having one on both sides means that all students can be served in that fashion. So playgrounds, not only with the school, play a crucial role in the mental, emotional, physical development of our children. 37.6% of children aged 5 to 17, they're the only ones that receive the recommended physical amount of activity during a day. On top of this, anxiety, depression, and the lack of gross motor skills are being diagnosed in our children at an alarming rate. I even saw it in the police commissioner report that mental health was one of the upward trends. Medical professionals and researchers agree that we need to develop healthy habits early on in life, and this includes with physical play. And it's further supported by the Canadian Council of the Chief Medical Officers of Health, who state access to active play outdoors is essential for healthy child development. We need to make sure we have accessible play opportunities for all our children to support healthy development. And so we're seeing that people will say the downward trend of kids playing outside. And so we just want to make sure we're supporting that, providing opportunities that would be appealing to kids. So this will enhance our community for families and children, and further just improve the vibrant and healthy lifestyle that already exists in Lacombe. So we're looking for partnership with the City of Lacombe. We have pursued, and we will continue to pursue, many possible opportunities to raise funds. We have completed a large number of grant applications, one of which was the Community Builder Grant that we were declined for. So we thought our next step was to come directly to City Council. We've also presented to local groups like the Kinsmen, the Rotary, and other boards within our community. We've approached community business owners. We have hosted events, collaborated with businesses and other nonprofits, and we've been trying to actively interact with our community in person and on social media. And most importantly, we've worked with our Jays parents who have been a huge support of us. They've ran multiple fundraisers, and we're continuing to run fundraisers, and that's where actually the majority of our funds have come from so far. We are kind of exhausting ourselves and our resources. We're a really small group. of individuals. And our goal is to build in spring of 2026. The viability of this project sort of depends on getting more support from the city so we could go forward. And if we don't, we do wish to install a playground. It just will not be equivalent and possibly will not provide the accessibility for all children at this point. How about the next one? What, the 80,000?
So we are here to ask for an $80,000 cash contribution. This $80,000 could be the donation that makes this playground replacement a success. And not only a success, but something that our kids are asking for. Like our kids, they need this playground. So why 80,000? So your contribution could specifically purchase the rubber matting, which is crucial to making this the accessibility part to the playground. That would give obviously wheelchair access, walker access, even playing grounds for people with vision impairments. It would also go towards other accessibility pieces that we would add to our playground. Your contribution could, oh, sorry, I already read that part. The city has built the Tricon Accessible Playground. So many of you are aware that the most expensive items on a playground build is the accessibility pieces. The same piece that could be something for a non-accessible person would be $30,000 more just because you tag the name accessible to it. And you make a little ramp for it or whatever they would do for it. Other items that are expensive include the ramps. So instead of having steps on our playground, we want ramps so that the children can access all areas of the playground and be able to play independently as well as alongside their peers. A saucer swing, so you could sit alongside your peers. You could get into the swing by yourself if you are mobile. Yeah, just other things like that that would make the in-ground equipment more accessible. Things like a tactile wall instead of just the bars on the wall so that people that are low vision can feel things instead of just relying on their feet. So,
and this will be only truly I know there's a lot of playgrounds that are considered somewhat accessible or inclusive, but the rubber matting, like, I don't know if you ever tried to push somebody through wood chips, even in a stroller with a wagon, the difficult nature of that. So the rubber matting is crucial for that for our students. And this will only be the third accessible playground within the city. And that serves 15,000 people or more. So with that, furthermore, your $80,000 just doesn't go towards the playground. What I tried to show up here on both sides is that it goes further than that. Right now, we're looking forward to applying for the Alberta CFIP grant in September. I know the city has applied for that before for certain projects, and they'll match up to $125,000. We don't have that amount yet. So our goal is to reach that amount to utilize that matching ability. So the provincial government will then provide us that money, and that will launch us forward into our goal. So your 80,000 could actually mean 160,000. Furthermore, we said like other businesses and county and people like that will also then join in the cause, which will then contribute further. So that 80,000 could actually be an additional $120,000 for us just by that amount. If you want more details, I could go over that in more detail. I just don't want to, I know it's in your booklet. So if you want to look through that. So yeah, that's what I was saying is that there's a large difference with your support. We'd be 93% to our goal to complete this project. Without it, we essentially are 0%, and we could barely put in a playground of anything, especially with rubber matting. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Yes, we'd be 93% of our $350,000 build. But I really think that your money does more than that. I think it's a commitment. It's not just to us, it's an investment in improving the lives of our children and just the citizens of Lacombe in general. I just want to thank you for your giving us a chance to come and talk and your consideration. We do have sponsorship packages. So if you know of any business or individuals that this might be interested, we do have them here. If someone's interested, I can email them out also. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I would suggest the parents and children both are very fortunate to have the three, I guess we'll say. Mr. Lund, working on their behalf. Thank you for that presentation. Certainly you can.
Come and talk about accessibility. With the documentation that they have put out there, with this only being the one that, thank you. I'm not speaking loud enough. To be the third accessible playground in the community. People's vision of accessibility is different than people that have mobility issues. If you've ever tried to go through BARC in a stroller or a wheelchair, it doesn't work. This playground being central, I know it's not on city land, it is on school land, but it is used by the community. And I know that the city has partners with other organizations in helping out with accessibility and other structures and stuff that are in our community to enhance the city of Lacombe. So I just want to put it out there that this is a project that the city should consider looking at. And I do have one more thing, that Team Jigger has chairware coming up for the month of May, and the city council has been challenged by Team Jigger to participate, and also the admin. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jason. Appreciate it. Now I conclude all three of you in that what I said earlier. So thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I've been on Rec and Culture Board. I do sincerely appreciate your presentation and your empathy. I'm very empathetic to all your work you've put forward. You're put a lot of hard work, and it was extremely difficult because it was, once again, it was like school property, and yet, I think it's a very difficult position, and yet I truly feel that this is the best approach, because I think not only one playground needs to be done, I think a long-term template needs to be created, because there's more than one playground. The Laban, where I live, was over $400,000. I think around $450. And yes, it has the rubber matting and so forth. And we're currently doing playgrounds, and they were $150,000 per playground. And I don't think there's rubber matting at the playgrounds that we've done at that budget for Rec and Culture. And we've had to increase them budgets because if you look, it's honestly ridiculous what they cost, for what you get for that kind of money. But I think in order to have a partnership with the county, I think we need a long-term template with several playgrounds that need to be addressed, because, to put it bluntly, several things are being offset to the municipality from the province, not just this. There's lots of things in the municipality that this council and future council is going to have to address, but I really think council administration, we need to have a long-term template. It's just not one playground. Like, you're asking for 8,000. It almost could be 80,000 every other year to address 3 or 4 playgrounds realistically. And why not just have a long-term agreement like we've done with other organizations, and let the volunteers and the people that have the passion to want to succeed in it, support them once. That's what creates community, is supporting groups and organizations that have a passion to succeed. So I think that's our place. And I really think we need to have administration direction to, and there's other private schools that should have access to it too, because there is the Christian school, the Berman, like we have, and the Catholic school division. We've got several different school divisions in the same community that I think it's just, might as well just deal with it. So that's my opinion.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think we all appreciate your passion and dedication to improving this community. I'm grateful you're here, so thank you for coming. This is an extremely tough presentation for me to read, to watch, to listen to, and it leaves me feeling disappointment. I think not our next presentation, but our request for decision, it's going to tell us exactly how much money the province collects from members of this community to go towards school divisions and school boards choosing how to allocate that money. And I struggle with this a great deal because this is an asset owned by the school, and that division has failed to budget for asset management and replacement. And I just feel like they are their own level of government. They receive a large amount of funding, and then they're maybe not advocating to the province, and that government is failing our schools as well. So I think this comes to multiple levels, and I just struggle with saying we will be the Band-Aid to fix this now. I just looked up Terrace Ridge is 20 years old. So there's, as Councillor Ross mentioned, there's another playground that the city has to support in the future when we do this. And I just truly wish that the school board would have even allotted money to the budget there. To just allot in kind is not satisfactory in my mind. And when there is an election in 6 months, I think it should be a strong message from our community to make this a priority, that the school division takes this as a priority in the future. I guess I'm open to supporting this, and I think council has made a strong direction to our administration to find ways to work with the school division to find a way to partner in avenues. And I think this would be an incredible avenue for the school division to come forward and find a way to work with us. And I think there would be a strong appetite to do that. But in this ask, I'm not super keen on it. And so I apologize.
Certainly.
I'm not like part of the school division, but from what I understand is that with the school division budget, what is allocated, that it's a large amount, like I want to say into like 80% is staffing. And so the concern with that is that for them to try to rebudget that is that essentially we're taking teachers and EAs out of the classroom, which I don't know if you know, but the classroom sizes already are ridiculously high, and the needs in the classroom are ridiculously high. I'm a substitute teacher, so I go into many classrooms and see this. And so it's just, that's where the budgeting is really difficult. And like I said, I know the city has similar constraints on their budget, but I just feel like we're getting bounced back and forth. And that's kind of, I clearly understand what you're saying, Councillor Dallas, but it's just, it's very difficult because we do know the division saying this and the city saying this. And in the end, just nothing will happen though. And it's not right, but we're just asking you guys to like take that first step and be the lead by example, I guess. So.
And I will speak as well for parent councils meet as an AGM every year across Alberta. And last year at the AGM, it was a huge topic of discussion was playground replacements and funding for that. And so as a school council association, they went to Alberta Education with our concerns and presented it to the Minister of Education. And I don't think we've heard back on whether or not they've approved anything or going forward what the plan would be if they even took it and did anything with it. But it is something that councils are aware of and have approached and are really trying to push for in terms of supports. So.
Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. I'm a huge proponent of playgrounds. I had quite a long discussion with Mr. Lund at the trade show about accessibility and how I feel about it. And I'm very disappointed to see wood chips going in at Popo's, but we can talk about that later maybe. But I would love to support this. I think it's time maybe that we step up and be first. I mean, we certainly would have to put it in our budget in the fall. But we have quite a large budget already for playgrounds, and these are playgrounds that are used a lot, as you indicated, 1,000 students there. And I would love to see us part of this and maybe step up and say, okay, we're going to take the high road here and be part of this. And the school, but the school board doesn't want to be involved, oh well. Maybe we can find another way, but I think it's important for our community and our children to be involved. I'd like to see these become part of our playground program. Thank you.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I've had the good fortune of actually having both hats. I have been a school board trustee before, so I have that experience. I do understand totally about the whole, this entity versus this entity. So just for a little bit of background, even the funding of new playgrounds for new schools or modernizations is a relatively recent thing that never existed before. It was completely up to a school division or the parents trying to fundraise madly to make those things happen. That's only been around for about 5 years-ish. That didn't exist when I was still a school board trustee. But that still doesn't solve the problem of the fact that there's still no plan to address this going forward. Say we are successful and we build this new playground, the school division would commit to maintaining that, but there's still no plan then for renewal. And we all know that there's going to be renewal required. We have our own very large inventory, which is much larger than what Wolf Creek's inventory would be for playgrounds. And I just would like to just quickly ask administration ballpark, you probably don't have an exact number, but how many playgrounds do we have in our rotation of renewal, and approximately how many years in between renewal are there?
There is between 22 and 24 playgrounds, and they're renewed. We are attempting to target a 25-year renewal rotation.
Okay, which seems quite a reasonable expectation. I definitely echo some of the thoughts here that I feel like that these playgrounds are very valuable to our community, and I'm not necessarily ideologically against investing in them, but I think that we need to have a plan. So number one, a 2026 expectation is probably unrealistic, because I think something like this, in my opinion, really needs to go through the budget process, and we're not quite there yet, but it is coming. But that will affect the timelines for you guys, because $80,000, frankly, is a big ask. In my opinion, is just too large of one to be like, yeah, let's do it. As much as that would be awesome, because it's opening a large can of worms. I'm setting a precedent by saying I'm supporting this playground, which means I, in theory, can't think of a reason why I would say no to other projects. So that would be almost like creating a joint use agreement or something, coming up with some plan going forward, that we have a funding formula going forward where we're agreeing on timelines, we're agreeing on, what is being put in place. Like, there's just so much to this that I really want to make this happen, but I just think that it's just, from my point of view, unrealistic to just say that the city's just going to step up and do $80,000. As worthy as I think this project is for our community, that's the dilemma I have, because I want to see this happen, but this just is really just going to be a much bigger conversation than just tonight.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy, but I think Mr. Lund wanted to say something.
Yes. Question to what you just said about playground. How many of them is going to be accessible? Because there's playgrounds right now that I can't even get to the playground.
100%. I would have to give that to administration. I would say that that's generally not the default. And I 100% appreciate that aspect of it too. I think going forward, it would be ideal if every playground was designed to be accessible, so that like we've said when we opened up the most recent one, and it's so true, is an accessible playground is better for everybody, for every user. It just makes it that much more usable for all ages and all abilities. So I totally take your point.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I just want to thank you That was courageous for you to be here tonight. I don't really have anything new to add. You know my questions already because I had the privilege of connecting with you earlier. But I guess the one thing I do want to echo is that there has to be a plan, and it's not there, unfortunately, for replacement in the future. So I agree with Councillor Hibbs that this has to be looked at a little bit more closely before we commit to it.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think we all, I shouldn't say we all, shouldn't speak for everyone. Some of the discussion is to create that template, create that plan. I think it's kind of, not to assume again, but safe to say the construction probably won't take place in 2025, as we'll all have responsibilities of budgets, including the county. But I also think sometimes if I don't know if this council give direction of a support that would enable you to apply for CPC, your grants with a letter of support, enables you to get higher grants, knowing that there is support in principle. And then your sponsors, you can go to sponsorship knowing that a project is truly going to take place. I would strongly support in principle to allow your committee to serve its intentions to contribute to the community. And I sometimes challenge even maybe to go back to the rec board and say, should we review the number of playgrounds that we're doing? Should we be doing less and make better playgrounds that are the rubber matting and more accessible? And do we really need 24 across the city? Should we? Because I live in the Laybon area, and there's several vehicles there daily that drive from somewhere else along across the city to go to that specific playground. So I don't know, do we as a rec board need to review the number of playgrounds we're doing? Do we really need 24 across the city? Do we have 12 that are better, more accessible matting instead of wood chips? Because $150,000 is not giving us that accessible rubber matting and so forth. Because if you want to go see what $450,000 does, go visit the Laybon one. And not to say we have to spend that much, but it's crazy.
So I would hate for us to get too bogged down in details about any of these facilities at this point in time. Our administration has been listening intently to us, and I think that they can sense that there's a strong desire to try and be involved somehow. And as to what exactly that may look like, I expect time will tell.
Could I speak to Councillor
Ken?
Ross's point
Sure.
about the CFIP? Like, I would have to ask if a commitment like that of some sort or any dollar amount would be work for the CFIP, like not just having the cash in our account. One problem that we're running into with playground building with CFIP is the cycle. And this is why we kind of tried to like pick a date to try to build towards, because if you apply for CFIP in September, you don't know till March. You can't order the playground. And then if you don't hit that one, you apply and you don't know till the fall. Well, you can't put a playground in December. So every time we push off, it's not 6 months, it's not 3 months, it's a year, because the playground can only be built 6 months a year or 5 months a year. And that is what we're running into with grants. It's like we apply for a grant, but it's only good for so long. Well, if you don't have that grant, then you don't. And that's kind of like the waterfall effect that we're running into. So something like a commitment like that would actually be helpful. If it would work with the grant, I'd have to look into it though. So.
We certainly feel your pain. Keep in mind the city works off a 25-year cycle for their playgrounds. And to be honest with you, it hasn't been that many years since we've had the policy in place for even that scheduling. But no, we understand what you're up against. And it does make for some challenges, which I expect you probably were not quite prepared for. And that's completely understandable. But as I said, I think that I, for one, certainly look forward to some additional ideas and details to come forward from our administration so that we can perhaps choose a path that is most appropriate for our community. I don't see any more lights on, so thank you once again to all three of you for presenting tonight. We appreciate it. It's just financial stuff.
Yes, but it's not. It's this information.
All right. Next up, our auditors, one familiar face and one that we've only seen in print. And then that's not a shot at you as a partner, Lorraine Walker. We appreciate you being here. We understand that you have a very busy season and also perhaps a foaling time of year that's particularly busy as well, as I recall from previous presentations by Mitchell. So Mitchell Kennedy, rather, the Senior Manager for BDO, we appreciate you both being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks for your introduction. Let's walk you guys through this final letter to those charged with governance. It'll look very similar to when we were here doing our planning discussion. I'll try to keep it short and try to hit the major points as I go. If you guys have any questions at all as I talk, please feel free to stop me. Otherwise, I'll just continue talking. So thanks. So as of today, our audit is substantially completed, pending a few asks, which is one, the signed management letter, which we actually just got back today, pending board approval. And we have everything else. We finished our subsequent event testing and yeah, pending the approval of the financial statements here in front of us, we can get this ready to go and file to municipal affairs. So these are the significant risks related to our audit. So as you guys may have remembered from our planning discussion, there were 2 new standards that were adopted this year. The first one was section 3400, that's revenue recognition for exchange transactions. And then there was section 3160, which is public-private partnerships. So that has to do with when a municipality engages with a private entity to effectively build infrastructure assets. So through the course of our audit, because we had to do the adoption of the revenue recognition standard, it led our firm to have multiple discussions with our clients and other auditing firms to discuss effectively all streams of revenue to make sure that we're in coordination with everybody else. Through our discussions, we ended up finding out there's a section called 3100, which relates to externally restricted revenue. And more specifically, it touches on offsite levies. So a lot of municipalities, not just this municipality, has been effectively recognizing revenue related to offsite levies when they collect payment. So unfortunately, under the MGA section 648, those forms of revenue are externally restricted and have to be spent for the reason by the bylaw in which they're being collected for. And so there is going to be a restatement on the financial statements, which relate to amounts dating significantly back in time that we effectively pulled out of your equity, which is your reserve balances, and had to put in your deferred revenue. So this is something that's impacting a lot of municipalities, and quite frankly, probably more municipalities than not. And so it doesn't run directly through your income statement. It's just an adjustment from your equity to your deferred revenue. So when you start working on those infrastructure projects, you will be effectively recognizing that revenue through what I call the matching principle with those expenses.
And that adjustment actually, when you think about it logically, makes better sense for your constituents, because right now they're seeing it in your reserve balances. So it looks like you have this big bucket of money that's available for anything that you choose it to be available for. And now it's moved on your statement of financial position up into the deferred revenue, into the liability section. So it is very clear now that those monies are actually restricted for a specific use. So I prefer this presentation. I was very grateful for management that they agreed to do the prior period adjustments so that the comparatives make more sense. And I think going forward, we'll just be looking at the revenues and more clarity to make sure that you have recognized them in accordance with the projects and where the projects stand at a certain point in time.
I did miss this slide. This is the slide that talks about our materiality. So our materiality is calculated based off of a formula. This year, we're taking approximately 4.5% of your total expenses, and that's giving us a materiality base of about $1.9 million. So there is something called performance materiality that we use, which helps drive our sampling methodology throughout our audit. And then we have a term that we call clearly trivial, which is just another calculation where we take 5% of materiality, and effectively, if we come across anything that might be what we deem clearly trivial, we won't adjust for it, and it will not appear in your schedule of likely aggregate misstatement. That's not to say the dollar value is the sole reason that determines whether or not we will make an adjustment. If there is something that might have an impact to the user, we will consider even the clearly trivial amounts as well. There is another there's another significant risk here. It's the management override of controls. This is effectively an inherent risk that most municipalities will have when they have a smaller accounting team. It just means that you have a couple of individuals that theoretically have the ability to override any other accountant within the organization. Even though it's a risk, it's mitigated because we do what we call mock testing, which is effectively journal entry testing. So we will look at all manual adjusting journal entries that's posted by what we call the super user access to make sure that those manual adjusting journal entries are true in nature. So this is our audit cycle. You guys have seen this probably many times. This is just effectively our stage of the audit where we're now at number 6, where we're doing our final communication to you guys. So as you guys may have remembered, our whole audit planning cycle starts from step number 1, where we kind of go through our scoping, we go identify and assess risks. We design an audit process to mitigate those risks, and we do that in the form of obtaining audit evidence. And then once we get the audit evidence, we then form our opinion on the financial statements through our audit report. And then we come to you guys and present our findings to the financial statements here today. So it's circular, and the reason why it's circular is because if we find an issue throughout the process at any point in time, we will go back and revisit the various stages depending on what we need to do to make sure that specific risk is mitigated. These are marketing slides. I'm not gonna run you guys through these ones. So this is just our independence letter. It's just us formally declaring that we are truly independent of the city, which allows us to do the audit of the financial statements. And we did have, this is what we call our SLAM, or schedule of likely aggregate misstatement. So there were 2 entries in here. One relates to just the valuation of your investments. So you have 2 types of investments. You have bonds and principal protected notes. So under section 3450, which is financial instruments, you have 2 ways to effectively account for bonds. One is using the amortized cost method, or you use the fair value of the bonds. The second one's a little bit more complicated. It's principal protected notes. There's a portion in there that has an equity derivative. So a principal protected note is effectively made up of 2 different components. There's the host contract, which is effectively your principal portion that you have invested. And then your gain on that investment is dictated based off of an indices, more specifically an equity indices. And the standard basically walks you down a path where it goes, are you able to separate the host contract from the equity derivative? And if the answer is no, you have to effectively value it at fair market value. So that's just an adjustment that we're making because currently they're recorded at cost. So it has no material impact to the financial statements, but we're just highlighting that entry here for you today.
Mitchell, while you're moving into that portion, I'm just curious, what effect would it have if the materiality number was substantially different than as it approaches the $2 million mark?
So are you, just so I can get clarity on your question, are you asking if, let's say, the unrealized gain or loss on the investment would fluctuate close to materiality? Is that what your question is?
No, not specifically for that, but the whole idea of the materiality in the way that it would affect decisions made by council. Maybe if it was an aggregate total across the entire finances, it wouldn't be quite, but if it's one specific area, it is significant. And I'm just curious what a smaller one effect does it have? Does it increase the sampling that you do or the overall work? What would be the effects? I understand it's based on a percentage, but at
Yeah.
what point does it?
So that's a loaded question. I'll try to answer that as simply as possible. So if we're doing testing and let's say we're looking at grant revenues and we find out that there's a new grant that you guys have in the year, and that grant doesn't have what the handbook says is a stipulation, it effectively means that it should be immediately recognized. So if you guys have deferred that and your other grants are very common grants, like the Canadian Building Fund, which was the old federal gas tax one, if it's very clear that there's stipulations on the other grants because they're common grants, they're not new ones, then we would effectively, depending on the dollar value, have it as an unadjusted error, or we would adjust it depending on the dollar value if it's close to materiality. So if we're talking about expenses where we vouch an expense and the dollar value in the invoice doesn't match to what's in the GL, we would do something called extrapolation, where we would effectively see, okay, our total sample is X dollars. Out of the X dollars in our bucket or pool of samples, we've found 3% of that error. So then we extrapolate that error over the entire population to determine what our potential impact could be. So the reason I have those two examples is one, I would argue, is isolated. The other is not. So because we can't isolate one, we would have to extrapolate it to see what the potential error is. Or with the grants, because we're very clear and there's usually not a lot of grants, we can basically say, yeah, it's clearly just this one grant that's creating the problem. This is what we need to deal with. So does that help answer your question?
It does. I'm just curious, has there been a recent example where you've even come close to the materiality?
We come close to a lot of, how do I phrase this? There's been a lot of situations that I've seen and that I can promise you that she's seen where we've had errors that have been over materiality. And we have to do one of two things at that point. One, we either have to adjust it, or two, we have to qualify the financial statements. So obviously we would try to opt for the adjustment, but sometimes there are disputes between accountants and the people that we're auditing where they might disagree with us, but we can't issue a clean opinion because we're just not allowed to. So there might be a variant of opinions. Thankfully, I've never dealt with a situation like that, but usually when it's coming close to materiality, usually people are content to adjust it. The main reason that we don't sometimes is just because it doesn't have any impact on the users, and it might actually confuse them in some cases more than actually helping them out. And so normally some errors will clear themselves out over time. So they will just naturally correct themselves. And that's why we don't adjust it sometimes too.
Especially if it's a timing error. So if it's a cutoff difference, unless it's significantly material, we typically will put that on our schedule of unadjusted differences because it reverses itself the next year. And it could simply be an interpretation. To go further into your question as to whether or not we would change materiality at some point in time. So as you can see, we actually did, and we adjusted it upwards because we're taking a look based on our knowledge of you as a client and the history with the city. What have we had for unadjusted differences in the past? So what have we had to propose for actually adjusting entries? Have we seen areas within the financial statements that there is more potential for errors? So all of that is driven A, by materiality, but then B, also by our risks assessments. So if we find a financial statement item is of higher risk, for example, revenue, then we do more testing on that balance. Even though the overall materiality hasn't changed, the risk in that financial statement item has increased, and so our testing goes up.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, just gonna run you guys through our audit report. So even though there is a restatement, it's still a clean audit opinion. Just to go through the paragraphs here, we have audited the financial statements here in front of you. They are free from material misstatement. We conduct our audit in accordance to Canadian GAAP. There is that EOM we call emphasis of matter, which is just to illustrate that there is a restatement related to 2023 numbers, which is you'll see once we get to note 2, it's $1.3 million adjustment out of your equity to your deferred revenue. And then even though we prepare these financial statements here in front of you, the financial statements are the responsibility of management and council. Our objective as auditors are to make sure that these financial statements are free from material misstatements. We do that in the form of all these bullet points, which is effectively the circular diagram that I was going through earlier. And then I'll move on to the statement of financial position. So when you're looking at the statement of financial position, you'll notice on the top right-hand side, just under 2023, you'll see a restated word. That effectively means anytime you see restated, there's going to be a dollar value that was on your previous 2023 financial statements, which will have information that is different than how they were originally issued in 2023. So the only numbers that are going to change here is going to be your deferred revenue, your net financial assets, and your accumulated your restricted reserves, which is in your equity, but it doesn't. Yeah, you'll see the flow through once I get to note 2. So anytime you see that, it just means there's been a restatement. So just going to go do a quick high level comparative from current year to prior year. So your cash balance is down by about $3.5 million. I'll get to that more when I get to the statement of financial position. Your investments are relatively the same. You've earned interest of about $500,000 on your investments in the year. Accounts receivable went down a little bit. That's just because last year you had a government grant receivable that you no longer have in 2024. Going further down, your liabilities didn't have much of a change. Your net financial assets have moved from the $1.4 million last year to a deficit position of $700,000. So there was one item in your financial assets that got moved from your financial assets to your non-financial assets, and that account is going to be your inventory held for resale. The reason why that has to move is because the standard requires that anything that's in the financial assets, the expectation is within 12 months that you would theoretically liquidate it or could get rid of it. So in this case, you have inventory held for resale. If that doesn't move within 12 months, we have to move it from what's deemed a financial asset to effectively a non-financial asset. So going further down your capital assets, you had about $12.8 million in capital asset additions, and you had about $8 million in amortization in the year, which is causing that change. And so your accumulated surplus at the end of the year increased by about $3 million from last year. For statement of operations, the way I like to approach this is kind of just compare what council approved as a budget and compare to what actually happened in the year. And if there's any significant differences between budget and actual, I compare it to what happened in the previous year to see if the numbers are relatively consistent to what's been happening in the past. So as you can see this year, you had budgeted about $41.5 million in operating revenue. Your actual revenue is about 43.7. So a lot of that change is coming from your return on investments, and you have other revenue, which is a form of outside contributions that the city has received in the year. That's moving down to the expense side, where you guys had budgeted about $44 million. Your expenses are also up a little bit, about $700,000, which is going to leave you an excess shortfall of about $900,000 at the end of the year versus what you guys had expected to be about $2.4 million. So, and then there's your government transfers for capital. That's just your capital grant revenue that you would recognize in the year because you had capital asset additions. So your actual transfers for capital were $3.2 million. And then you had contributed assets, which were gifted capital assets received in the year for $370,000. So your excess of revenue over expenses is about $2.7 million at the end of the year. And that's causing your change from your accumulated surplus at the beginning to the end. Okay. So starting with your statement of cash flow, your starting position is going to be the same number that was at the bottom of your statement of operations, which is your net income. Moving further down the line within your net income, you're going to have line items in there that include of contributed assets, which are non-cash. You have amortization, and then going further down, your significant change is going to be your change in your accounts receivable, which was just related to that government grant that you no longer have in the year. Going further down, you purchased the $12.4 million in capital asset additions. You'd sold off some capital assets and you received about $150,000 in proceeds. And then your change in investments is just your gains on your investments. And then you had repayment of long-term debt for about $1.1 million. And so your net change in cash is that $3.7 million in the year. So on your new accounting policies, these are the two standards that I was referring to earlier. 3400 didn't quite have an impact on you guys, but as I said, that's the reason it kind of opened the door to section 3100. 3160, it talked about public-private partnerships. We're not aware of you guys having any type of partnerships with any private entities to effectively build capital assets. So there is a significant thing that's coming out in 2027. That's your conceptual framework. So normally you guys are probably used to changes in standards every year for the past 3-4 years now. You guys get a break until 2027 and then a significant change is coming out. So the conceptual framework is going to change things from effectively what the financial statements look like to looking at lease agreements, which is basically they're going to take an IFRS 16 approach where they say, unless it's a short-term lease, everything's going to be a capital lease. They're looking at revenue recognition standards to see if there's anything that needs to change. So it's going to be a big push for municipalities to effectively get on this as soon as possible, start reading the standard and see the changes that are going to be forthcoming. So this is your long-term debt. So at the end of the year, you guys had the $21.5 million in debt. So as you can see, over the next 5 years, your expected payments for your long-term debt are going to be roughly around $1.8 million a year. And so that's going to be just a mixture of your principal and interest payments on your debt. Your change in accumulated surplus. So this is effectively the net book value of your municipality, your equity of your municipality. So it's broken up into 3 major categories. You have your equity in TCA, which is effectively your book value, your net book value of your capital assets, subtract off your long-term debt, and you subtract off your asset retirement obligations, and that gets you your equity and TCA value. And then there's your restricted reserves. So you guys currently have $16.1 million in reserves currently set aside for future spending. And then you have your unrestricted surplus of about $7 million, which I call kind of like your rainy day fund, where you could theoretically move that equity into your reserves, leave it there, and the off chance that you need to do emergency spending throughout the year. And now on your debt limits. So your debt limits are a moving number. They will move directly correlated to your operating income in the year. So as your operating income increases, so too will your debt limit. And it's driven by your MGA. So the debt limits under the MGA are calculated by taking 1.5 times your operating revenue. And that's effectively the maximum amount of debt under the MGA that a municipality can take out. And so for you guys, you currently have a debt limit of $65.6 million. You currently have $21.5 million in debt, which leaves you with the room of $44 million that you theoretically could take out as a municipality. And then there's your internally restricted debt limits. These are debt limits set by council. And so your debt limit is currently calculated to be $32.8 million. And as I noted before, you have 21.5 million in debt currently. And then there's your debt servicing limit. So your debt servicing limit is calculated using formula under the MGA as well. That's 0.25 times your operating revenue. That number means that's your total debt.
On 23 financial statements, the adjustments that was made related to your offset levies. And these are the restated balances for the adjustment that takes place.
Yeah, see the numbers from here, the overall restricted amounts that we have for.
I guess I just want to go to the debt limit page and I can't remember where it was, 25 or something. Where is that? Okay, 23. So we just had the trade show. We have the joy of speaking with our citizens. And one of the things that always comes up is that our taxes in the city are so high. And I guess when I look at this though, sometimes I wish I had some of this information in front of me too, though, is that our city is in a very good financial space or place. And I guess how do we compare to other municipalities? And is that even something we're supposed to know? Because I feel like, yes, we might charge, the taxes we charge are appropriate to the budget that we have set. But the most important piece for the citizens to know is this page, in my opinion, that we're not stretched too thin. Because at least that's what these numbers say to me. Yeah.
About $4.6 million. So the idea of it is you're going to spend that money, it's not really debt. So I take it out of the equation, which will put you in a positive financial position. Are there municipalities with a healthier financial position than the city? Of course. Yes. The short answer is there are. Are there some that are worse?
I would say you're not. I would say as a municipality, you're doing probably what you should be doing as a municipality. And I'm just thankful I'm not in a council position where I have to potentially look at changing tax rates, utility rates, whatever I need to function, because it's a hard decision to do. But I think you guys are doing the best of your ability to make sure you're doing what you can for your citizens of your municipality. I don't see you guys, you guys are not doing bad. I think you guys are doing good.
Given that jump you had earlier with the bell that went off in the background, I was gonna say, it's the end of April, you're gonna make it. It's all good.
Are you talking about me looking back there? I didn't know what that was. And I'm like, oh, that might be coming from my mic. And I'm like, yeah. So if that was me, I apologize.
Any other questions? Councilor Ross.
So when you do a business, you do debt to equity ratio. So that's obviously not the case in this whatsoever. Like,
No. So there,
Was there any additional input on the remaining notes? Or, no?
Not that I have, but I'm more than happy to go over it.
Very good. That's bring all questions we have for you now. Thank you both. Appreciate taking time out this time of year. I know it's a little critical. Your business this time of year.
To in-camera session here. With those, Councillor Hoekstra?
Whoops, what am I doing here? Would you like me to make the motion?
I
That
thought
we,
that's what you were gonna do.
thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that we move in camera.
Thank you. 7:24 by my clock.
7:53. Soon as the lights on, so please go ahead and vote. Excuse me. My machine is not working. Councilor by a show of hands. The motion is moved out of the camera. That's unanimous. Thank you. Under request for decision, item 6.1 from bylaw 5. Stewart Residence Municipal designation. Before us for second, possibly third reading. Senior Development Officer Kirk. Mr. Shapiro, thank you for being here. Whenever you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Christie, and members of council. All right, so I have a nice quick fun one for you guys. So we have the purpose of bylaw 524 is to designate the Stewart residence as a municipal historic resource. It's located at 5718 Cape Avenue. Under the Historic Resources Act, that's what allows municipalities to designate significant buildings and places as municipal resources. So there are 8 steps that are required. We are currently on step 6. Laconia municipal designations. So we do have 15 designated properties already. If the Stewart residence is approved, it will be number 16 on the list. So I do have the list here, but I'm not going to read them all for you. Here we go. And we have some that are a historic photo and a current photo showing how well conditioned the property is today. And then I will pass it over to our Heritage Resources Committee Chair, my name is Chen.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having us here again for another designation sort of property here. And this one I'm sure I'm not even reading off the screens or the stuff here because I think this one has been on our list for a while. And it's very exciting to see the property owners and move for designation of this property. Came over for sale last year. And if you did see it on the list, it is beautiful inside. It's a fine example of how a property can be preserved but still used as a modern living breathing house. You can have your marble countertop kitchen and still have a sort of facade on the outside. So of course, here's an example of the Eduardo bungalow with its curved full front, full width front projecting veranda, common street door, and textured shingly patterning. The features of the bungalow include wide eave overhangs, exposed rail tails, and multiple pane leading glass windows. All those terms I don't know what they mean because I say so real architecture. But the Stewart residence has its heritage value for its connection with its owners and occupants, Alexander Stanley Stewart and his wife. Stewart, who constructed the house himself in 1908, played an important role in the development of Lacona's urban infrastructure, working as a surveyor and civil engineer for the town. In 1918, Stewart sold the house to Floyd E. McLeod, who was a prominent member of Lacona's community and was proprietor of FB General Store, and served as mayor between 1914 and 1916. So not just built history, but also history viewed and who lived there as far as people there. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's both a recommendation by administration and the committee that council gives second and third readings support as presented to designate Stewart residence as a municipal historic resource. Maybe just on the side here, we just put in an abstract as well to attend the presentation at the National Trust conference in Halifax this year, and it'll be certainly another bragging point for us to be into that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just so there's no confusion, this is for bylaw 524.
Yes,
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll make that motion that council give second reading to bylaw 524 as presented.
Any input from council? Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Not really any input, just some comments that it's always great to see these. I was working the the Calgary Outdoor, and I can't remember the words for the trade show, Expo outdoor show, but a lot of people were asking what is some defining characteristics of Lacombe and some unique things to come see. And I was able to remember from previous presentations that we have the 4th highest number of designations in the province, and that seemed to intrigue people, and I was happy to be able to share that information. So thank you to you for helping me for potentially bring people to the community. So.
Very good. Please proceed to vote. Councilor Hookshire.
Carry on. I was thinking making that motion.
Oh, well, we better hang on to that for a second. So I was just gonna say, I think I know how this will go, but I want to see it just, we were in fact unanimously in favor of the second reading for bylaw 524. Thanks, everyone. Councilor Hookshire.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to move the council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 524 at the same meeting as second.
Thank you. Any input? Please go ahead and vote. Actually in favor as well. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll make the third motion that council gives third reading to bylaw 524 as presented.
You. Additional input there either. Please go ahead and vote. That is unanimously in favor. You were not mistaken. That was very great. Motions. We appreciate the work they do, and this is a good one to have on that list. Very appropriate, and yeah, a long time coming. I'm not so sure this should have been, in my opinion, at the front end, but better to have it out there. So good.
Thank you.
Oh, I've got Manager Mitchell here, but I expect that perhaps Director Thompson is going to be taking this item 6.2.
I am, thanks, Mayor Creasy. Manager Mitchell sends her regrets, she's ill today. So tonight, council administration is seeking consideration of an increase to the capital budget to fund the 2025 Capital Works program. The Capital Works program includes asphalt resurfacing and roadworks as per our roads asset management plan recommendations. It includes the replacement of municipal utilities, particularly those in lanes that were deferred from 2024 to allow for Active Gas to do some work initially. And so that work has been completed, and now there is work that can continue in 2025. But it also includes active transportation improvements, replacement of sidewalks, and also two that I want to highlight today, the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons at 2 locations in Lacombe. These rapid flashing beacons are a safety feature that you typically see them at crossings, push a button, it's the flashing kind of strobing lights. These are analyzed by engineering department based on a number of different factors, and if the thresholds for such an improvement are met, based on the criteria, then they are recommended for council's consideration during budget time. In this case, these were approved, and they are included in this program. The one is an RFP in Volvo on Terrace Drive. This is in conjunction with that, the construction of a sidewalk on between Taylor Drive and Terrace Drive. This provides a connection through the north-south connection all the way to Terrace Heights School, and including a RFP crossing at Terrace Heights itself. The second RFP is on 54th Avenue, which is near the Father Home Christian School. So with the road work that's occurring there, there will be an RFP on the 52nd Street intersection installed with the capital program as well. And this is in addition to the actually the third RFP that should be installed on 50th Avenue through the 49th C Avenue pedestrian plaza work that was previously approved by council earlier this year. So in total, there'll be 3 pedestrian crossings installed this year that improve safety for our residents in our community. When the capital program tender closed in April, we do a year-end projection for where that capital program budget will land. And when we did a projection when the capital program closed, the lowest contractors bid take into account, we're projecting a $290,000. And so to enable these programs to proceed this year, we are seeking council's approval to increase the budget reserve to allow those programs to continue. Included in the report are 2 alternatives for council's consideration should council wish to maintain the current budget allocation. Option 1 there is to address storm main, reduce the scope of storm main work. Council will recall at the end of March, Manager Mitchell had introduced the idea of replacing the storm main between 49C Avenue and 49B Avenue due to some failures in that system. We can limit that work to it so that it doesn't so that we can allow the 49C Avenue pedestrian plaza work to continue, but it still needs the remainder of that storm system that needs to be replaced in the next 5 years. But it could be deferred this year to maintain the budget. That along with reducing asphalt resurfacing on 54th Avenue as option 1, and that would save approximately $290,000 to bring the entire program budget. Option 2, we are pointing out is deferring 3 blocks of asphalt resurfacing on 54th Avenue, and that would save $345,000. These are alternative options for council consideration as well. So Mayor and Council, if there's any questions on the 2024 program, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're going to need budget increase of $290,000. Okay.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. I guess I'm not a huge fan of the one option presented where work would have to be recompleted in 5 years, which results in us repaving a section of road within 5 years and concrete work as well, increasing the cost. And then I'm also struggling with this number because I voted in favor of a $600,000 increase 1 month ago. And now we find out that that estimate was $215,000 light. And so I'm just struggling with this additional money here. And yet at the same time, I don't want to see these other projects suffer because of that. So I guess I'm not sure if maybe I'm interpreting this wrong with this increase in the budget for the $215,000 overage, or is this just we didn't have those quotes in at the previous time when we made this assessment a month ago? And so I guess that's one of the biggest questions. We didn't have those in a month ago.
As Councilor Dallas, we didn't. The tender closed early part of April, so we didn't have the tender numbers at that time. But the way we structured the construction was that if council had approved the addition of the storm system work, which they did in March, then we were including it in. So the funding for that was never allocated to the 49C Plaza work that they referred to as the $600,000 budgetary item. It was always included in our capital program, but it wasn't an emerging capital item because it was through the design work and investigations of the 49C Plaza that we discovered this was an urgent or emerging issue that arisen, and we were optimistically hopeful that this current budget would be able to absorb that extra storm meeting that we just more recently identified as needing to be replaced. But it's was predictably been sold as like Thank you for clarifying that and correcting my thoughts. I appreciate it.
I guess I'm still stumbling a little bit, but I appreciate Councillor Dallas's question, but so these numbers do include the 600 or what we increased it by already a month ago. Those.
CLW. $600,000 in total different project. During that project, we discovered there's a storm line that needs replacing. And we said, hey, while we've been working on 49C, we noticed the storm line needs replacing. We think you should add it into the 2025 capital project. We haven't closed the tender yet. It's possible that that budget for the 2025 capital project is going to allow us to just add this in. We're hopeful. But we said we're hopeful, but we're not super optimistic that that's going to happen. I think we said we have about 215,000 that we had for this. Once we actually went up to tender, this project along with a bunch of other ones comes out to need $290,000 more. A big part of that is what we had estimated for that storm line replacement when we talked to you about 49C was really low. It was much lower than it's actually but the 49C project with the $600,000, and I guess I do want to also defend that the $600,000 was a strategic decision endorsed by council to move up a significant portion of work from future years. The actual project overage was, do you remember? No. It was much smaller for the scope of work that was put forward, but we had come and recommended and we had agreed that actually it's better to just get this done all at once and move everything forward. So it wasn't a misestimation. There was a minor misestimation issue. It's not like this has been a consistent year of misestimation. It just, these two projects coming close to one another time-wise, it makes and physically also close to one another has made it seem that way. So basically it was within $70-some thousand of the $4 million target number. The $215,000 is in addition to any of the money so we've talked about before. Yes. So I really want to add funds on foot, even in this particular case. I think we are just do the work once. Is my thoughts. I too don't necessarily like portions behind coming back several years to do it. I think that this is going to be a difficult enough project area to implement once and for the public to appreciate to do it over again in a few years. I don't think it's in our best interest. Councillor Gulletson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I agree with this project because it was something that's found. Looking into the other projects was kind of an emergency and it makes sense to do it all together. So I will Move that council increase the 2025 capital works program budget by $290,000, funded from the general capital reserve.
Thank you. Additional input? Please proceed to vote. And that was unanimously approved for the 2025 capital work program. Thank you. Andrew McKenna is moving in place for some tax bylaw update work here. Sure what order you'd like to do these in, so I'll leave the floor open to you.
Thank you. So good evening, Mayor Cree City Council. Tonight, we're here to present the bylaw 527, which is the city's 2025 property tax bylaw, 528, which is a special tax payment tax bylaw, and 529, which is a supplementary tax assessment bylaw for second and third reading. These bylaws are required to levy property taxes required to have the city's current 2025 operating budget, as well as to collect third-party requisitions on behalf of the province and the Home Foundation. Council gave first reading to these bylaws on April 14th and the approval of the budget adjustments. Second and third readings are needed tonight to finalize the 2025 tax rates and meet legislative timelines for mailing notices in May. The payment deadline remains June 30th. Unanimous consent is required to consider third reading of the same meeting. So municipalities are in quality of life business. We provide essential and value-added services that directly impact how people live, work, and play. These services are funded through taxes, utility rates, fees, and charges. And they support everything from fire and police, parks, roads, libraries, and recreation. The operating budget ensures these services are delivered every single day. In return, residents receive real value for their contributions to services that protect, connect, and enhance our community. Municipal taxes pay for the essential services that keep our community running. They maintain transportation networks, roads, sidewalks, and more, whether it's summer or winter. That's no rule. And tax support parks, playgrounds, and recreation facilities like arenas, pools, making Lacombe a great place to live. They help community events, support local businesses, and plan for smart growth so our city continues to support. They also help us maintain our existing infrastructure, keeping it in good condition for the future. Taxes help keep Lacombe safe, connected, and moving forward. A vibrant, thriving, and welcoming community. Let's break down the municipal budget equation. On the left-hand side, we have the various categories of municipal operations that need to be funded. On the right-hand side, we have the funding sources to support these operations. On the left-hand side, we have core services. These are essential services like police, fire, roads, and snow removal. We have value-added services that enhance the community, such as recreation programs, libraries, and parks. We have asset management, which includes maintaining and repairing infrastructure like buildings, roads, and water systems. Special projects are the one-time or long-term projects like a new infrastructure development or major renovations. Reserve transfers are funded for our future needs, like capital projects or emergency funds. And finally, debt financing, paying off existing debts for infrastructure or other large expenditures. On the right-hand side, we have our funding sources: taxes, the main source of funding, primarily through property taxes; reserves, money set aside for specific purposes or future projects; grants, funding for provincial or federal governments for specific initiatives or operations; user rates, like charges for water, sewer, and recreation; development levies, fees that we collect from new development to cover the cost of infrastructure and services; and other sources, which include fines, licenses, and special levies that provide additional revenue. This slide shows the process that leads up to the final tax rate bylaws. The first column is the city's budget process, which usually occurs between August and November. The city's budget identifies the total revenue that is needed to deliver services. We then subtract all the other sources of income like grants, fees, rates, and charges. The amount left is a tax revenue requirement. This is what must be collected through property taxes. The second column looks at the assessment process, which happens through December and always through February. The tax revenue required is used to calculate how much tax each property must pay. Property assessments determine each property's share of that total tax needed. The third column is the tax rate bylaws, where we are today. Tonight, administration is requesting council to approve its first and second readings of the property tax bylaw 528 and the baby tax, special baby tax bylaw 529. The approval of this allows us to prepare and send our notices in May. Important just to go over mill rates. Mill rates do not change the total tax revenue collected. As the assessment goes up, the mill rate goes down. They adjust based on the changes in the property values to ensure budgeted amount is still collected. The municipal tax dollar competition. Let's examine the impact of municipal taxes on homeowner 350,000 residential property assessed. This homeowner will pay 2,882 municipal taxes this year, which is about $240 per month. Those taxes cover a wide range of essential municipal services like snow removal, fire, transit, and policing. And they maintain playgrounds, ball diamonds, hockey rinks, and roads, pathways, trails, grass cutting, and the upkeep of libraries, events, and animal control, as well as swimming pool. What could $240 per month get you? To put it into perspective, here's what $240 a month could get you in other areas of your life. It may be a phone and internet plan, a movie or dinner for two, a fitness membership plus a few smoothies, gas plus a one-night stay at a hotel, a monthly insurance payment, or it can cover your water, sewer, and garbage bills. When you consider the cost of $240 a month, it's a small price to pay for the wide range of services that keep your home functional, safe, and vibrant. Your tax dollar directly funds these services, improving the quality of life for everyone in the city. Special payment tax bylaw 528 outlines, which is set at 1% of the municipal taxes from the prior year, 2024. The revenue from this tax is fully allocated to payment of rehab rehabilitation. Specific 528 proposes to generate $182,149 for road improvements on 54th Avenue between 53rd Street and 51st Street in 2025. This is an update from our first edition of the bylaw 528. It's now 2 blocks instead of 3. Correction was made. The taxpayer impact, let's break down how this impacts a residential property value of $350,000. An annual impact of the special payment tax is about $28.35 per year. That comes to $2.36 per month, which is less than the cost of a small coffee, a lottery ticket or two, a gum, a birthday or thank you card, or even a chocolate bar or ready gummies. Or depending on the day, it's roughly the cost of 1.5 liters of gas. In conclusion, the small amount of cost provides value in improving roads that we use, ensuring the city's infrastructure stays in good condition. It's a small price to pay for a big impact on our community roads. Municipalities rely on property taxes, user fees, and grants to make their revenue toolbox relatively small. They also collect fines and penalties, but these sources are limited. In contrast, the provincial and federal governments have a much bigger toolbox and more diverse revenue items. Income taxes from individuals or corporations are a major source of revenue. Sales taxes like GST and provincial PST contribute significantly. Excise taxes on products of fuel, alcohol, tobacco, and federal government benefits from revenue also collected from national resources like oil, gas, and forestry. Intergovernmental transfers flow between governments to support funding across jurisdictions. Specialist taxes like the carbon tax are also used for environmental policy goals. In conclusion, municipalities are limited to property taxes and a few other sources of revenue, while provincial and federal governments have a wide array of tools for revenue generation, giving them more flexibility and resources. Council gave first reading to bylaws 527, 528, 529 on April 14th, following approval of the budget adjustments. Second and third readings are needed tonight to finalize the 2021 streets and meet legislative timelines for the notices in May. The payment deadline, as I mentioned earlier, is June 30th, and tax notices will be calculated and mailed out shortly after the May 16 tips tax installment fund is processed. Unanimous consent is required to consider third reading at the same meeting tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the tax files.
Thank you for that presentation, Councillor Lucia.
I'd like to make a motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 527.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I just have a question just for clarity's sake. I appreciate the tables in here that show the assessed value and then from the 2024 taxes to 2025 taxes. So thank you for including that. I guess I'm just curious, and I'm not sure if you can answer this off the top of your head here. So it shows that it is, apologies, it is on page 5 of the RFD table 2, tax comparison from 2024 to 2025. And so it shows assessed value $350,000 in 2024, and then assessed value in taxes in 2025. So assuming the assessed value remained the same, the municipal tax amount in 2024 was $2,980. And then in 2025, it actually shows there would have been a reduction paid on the municipal tax of $2,882. So I don't know, is that $113 difference? Had your home not changed in value, you would have seen a reduction in your tax paid just from municipal taxes alone, not including other requisitions. Okay, and so I guess what I'm curious about is, and this is where I'm saying you may not be able to answer this, from 2024, that amount that was paid off of that municipal tax was based on our request for budget. And that's what the bill rate talks about. Had our budget been identical from 2024 to 2025, say we just used the exact same numbers and it was static completely across the board, with a 10% increase in value, would the amount of taxes that was paid still be the same dollar value, the 2882? It just would have shown a further reduction compared to the 2024 year.
That last part.
So yes, and so I apologize. I'm trying to. So we'll just use say 2025. Had our budget request numbers been the exact same as 2024, and when the housing value stayed the same, we saw a reduction in the amount of property tax paid. But even if your house value had been assessed higher, you wouldn't have paid more because even though your house was valued more, because the amount the city was requesting was the exact same as the previous year, right? Or am I mistaken?
Okay,
only if it was in relationship to other.
Yeah, it's all about, so if we're assuming that everyone's house went up by 10%.
Yes, thank you. It was just a stat.
Yeah. Yes, then it would stay the exact same. Because they are never static. That's why we showed the estimated 10% increase. I think it was like 7% last year, something like that. There's also kind of an added element that can confuse it where you have new houses coming into the mix. So you're still collecting some new money, but
right.
If you assumed no new houses, 10% increase across the board, And council says we need 15 million last year to run the municipality, we need 15 million this year, no increase in tax. All those things, then it would be the exact same.
Thank you. That's all I'm curious, and I'm just trying to be able to say that, and so I can say that in the world confidently, and that to help people understand that it is, you know, it's I continue to try to explain it, and I'm just this is my graph and data point that I can say, and I know nothing is ever static. And that is a dream. But if it was static, this is a very stable number to use, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, buddy.
Because it is it's a complicated thing. We have a tool that we developed on the website this year that lets you go in and put your assessment in from last year and this year, and then it'll show you the tax. So that you see that an 8% increase in property value does not equate to an 8% increase in the tax you're paying. If everyone else gets an 8% increase, then you would see like tax increase 2% or 2.86. You would see a 2.86% increase, even if you had a 10% increase in your house value. If everyone else had a 10%.
Yes,
it was all these.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and then thank you for that addition to the website. So,
And our table is this exact same table. So you'll see what portion of your taxes are going to education, foundation, and the meeting tax. So we had somebody coming today, and her assessment went down, and she was smiling because she pays less taxes overall because we funded that number right away. So it just depends on assessment, your assessment.
Thank you.
So when it's going to be the easiest way for the public to access that. It's going to be able.
So now that we have, once we have the tax rate approved, then we'll put it on the website. And we're waiting to get the final approval of the tax rate so it links right to the millings. So we don't want to give anybody also until taxes are approved, and then they can calculate it.
Appreciate it. Let's make it front and center, because quite honestly, that was one of the biggest fears I had. One of the worst misunderstandings of this rather complicated formula that there is that people think that because there's an increase in assessment that directly correlates to the same fortunate increase in taxes, and that is not the truth. There's a lot of factors go into it, but that is not the case.
And we have we put 10% in there because they actually overall assessment about 9.7%. So a lot of houses are up, and a lot of commercial build businesses are up by close to 9.7%. That's why we took 10%. That's just a placeholder here. Last year was closer to, so it's a bit of interest this year for assessment overall.
Thank you. Councilor Hughes.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a couple of comments. This really shouldn't be that controversial. This is the last step in the train of property tax. The real big job, the heavy lifting was done at budget time. I think this budget was very responsible, had a very modest increase. And this is simply the bylaw that puts that into action. The decision that we made in the fall is now happening now. So I get it, how there was some confusion potentially over assessment values, et cetera, but in the grand scheme of things, it's irrelevant because that was just the multiplier that we used to collect the dollars, but those dollars were decided in the fall. And people do have lots of opportunity to talk with us, and I feel like we really did hear them as far as our priorities. So I just really want to underscore that for the public. It's really budget time that makes a difference, and we're now approaching the next budget time for the next year. So this is the time to be giving feedback and affecting change for future decisions. But again, I personally commend this council and administration for bringing a low budget increase in the grand scheme of things. I think you're really responsible. And I really do appreciate the presentation that was brought forward to really explain, a lot of the aspects. I do want to make one small, maybe not even correction, that's probably too strong of a word, but when you look at the toolbox that a municipality has versus what the provincial government or the federal government has,
In particular, I want to draw attention to the provincial government. They too, in fact, collect property tax, but they call it an education levy. So I just want, again, homeowners to really understand that when they see that bill come through and it has that education portion, we're collecting it on behalf of the province, but that's certainly not ours. And just reflecting some of the conversation that we had earlier this council meeting in regards to funding for things like playgrounds, just again, want to draw that correlation. The other thing I want to mention is that it was brought to our attention, and we know this, those of you that follow provincial politics, the province has said that they're going to continue to increase that education levy. So that portion of our property tax is going to increase and increase. And again, not out of any decision that any of us around this table or future councils will make. That's a decision made by the province. So I just want to underscore that even when it comes to our little toolbox, others get to play in it too.
That's brought forward by Councillor Dallas. We have Hoekstra, and my apologies, by Councillor Hoekstra, property tax bylaw number 527. Any additional questions? Please proceed to vote. Unanimously in favor. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Mayor Christie, I make the motion that council give second reading to bylaw 528.
You. Additional input, please proceed to vote. And second reading for that 528 is passed unanimously. Councillor Dallas.
Casey, make the motion. That also give second reading to bylaw. Did we read that? Only to bylaw 529. Thank you.
Very good, please proceed to vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Which is the hopes that considered be adopted. In order to do that, we do require unanimous vote for consideration of each of those as well. Mr. Levinson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 527 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. Your input, go ahead and vote. That unanimous decision, in fact, be considered the third reading, bylaw 527. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. Motion that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 528 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. Proceed to vote. Maybe consider third reading. Unanimous vote as well. Councillor Hoekstra.
I move that council resolves to consider third reading of bylaw 529 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. See no input, so please proceed to vote. Likewise, that one is unanimously. So Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would move that council gives third reading to bylaw 527.
Put your lights on, I guess. Please go ahead and vote. Property tax bylaw 527, that's passed unanimously. Councilor Hibbs.
Thank you. I so move that council gives third reading to bylaw 528.
Any clear? If you're able to vote, then vote, please do so. Bylaw 528 was passed unanimously. Third reading. Sir Dallas.
Thank you. Motion that council gives third reading to 529.
Thank you. With respect to bylaw 529. Vote. That unanimous approval. Third reading of bylaw 529. I'm sure we can breathe a sigh of relief. And see that the website is prepared with that formula, which I think will be helpful for me. Thank you. And you did such a good job on the last one as far as the financial report, the financial statements. Andrew McKinnon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I will present the City of Oakville's 2024 audit financial statements for your review and approval tonight. These financials reflect the city's financial performance for the year ended December 31st, 2024. There are two recommended motions for council's consideration. One, the council approve the 2024 audit financial statements as presented. And two, the council direct administration to transfer the 2024 year-end operating surplus of 2,596 to the operating reserve. Following section 276 of the MGA Act, council or municipalities must prepare financial statements under the general accepted accounting principles. These financial statements have been audited and received and qualified opinion, meaning the auditors find no issues or concern. The year ended 2024 with a small operating surplus of $2,596. Key takeaways: total revenues exceeded budget by 1.8 million. Total expenses also were by budget by 1.8 million, and transfers to reserves were the primary cause of the over expenditure. From the statement of financial position on page 2 of the financials, cash and cash equivalents decreased by 3.7 million. This is because the public works building facility was finished and borrowing we had received in cash was used to pay for the expenses. Accounts receivable dropped by 776,000 due to grant funding applied to the public works building. And deferred revenue decreased by 535,000 as MSI capital grants were also utilized against the operation of the building. Long-term debt decreased by 1.1 million from regular payments. Revenue variances included 777,000 surplus from Laguna Warner storage rental, 561,000 higher than expected interest and penalty revenue, of which 296 was allocated to the reserves, as per the reserve policy. 304,000 in additional user fees, mostly in utilities and aquatics. Some shortfalls in revenue included 344,000 in security clearance fees and 93,000 in police compliance. On the expense side, the most areas were in line with the budget. However, professional services were 294,000 over due to projects like solid waste optimization, PKG, annual implementation, and sharing information compliance. The largest overage, 1.7 million, was due to transfer to reserves, tied directly from surpluses and revenues. These reserve transfers were made in line with council's approved financial reserve policies. The financial reflecting capital deficit of 4.02 million, which is a tiny difference. In 2023, we borrowed 4 million from the public works facility, and in 2024, those funds were spent. There's no concern here, it's simply a tiny difference. With a modest operating surplus of 2,596,000, administration recommends transferring the full amount to the operating reserve. This aligns with council's existing policies and ensures that these funds remain available for future use. That concludes my presentation and answer any questions before council today.
Thanks, Mr. Buchanan. Where did it appear? I've lost my notes here for the organization of the municipal waste collection.
That was in the project. That was in the project management communities. So I think it'll be on one of the attachments that is listed. Under other professional services. And the 294,000 overspent expenditures included water, wastewater, and solid waste. We did not identify the details of that solid waste in the summary of the appendix A. But that was part of the over expenditure was optimization.
Suggesting we can't afford to get too darn efficient with the cost of work. It was worded a lot to me.
Yeah.
Just indicating that the process obviously was a little more involved than was anticipated, so it cost more. Was that the idea that Director Thompson?
No, rather actually it just spanned into the next year. It was budgeted for in the previous year, was concluded. We incurred costs in 2024 that should have been incurred earlier at the project being completed in 2023. And so let's do that. The consultant that we been working with us was bought by another firm, and there's some delays in that delivery of that. So we just incurred costs in 2024 that were in other professional services there.
Not necessarily the cost a bunch more. It was just the fiscal year which was allocated.
That's right.
Thank you. That sounds much better. So in fact, we can afford to be more efficient. Councilor Gillespie.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. That was my question also on that. But I also will talk about security clearances and revenue under budget by 340,000. That seems substantial to me. Was there any, well, maybe you can't answer this, but I wondered about, was there any, not excuse wouldn't be the right word, but any reason for that?
I would like to say that we had some high hopes that there was going to be additional revenue from going online, and those revenues haven't materialized. So the revenue shortfall existed last year. We thought we gained some revenue going online, offering security clearances, and it hasn't materialized. So it's revenue has been short 2 years in a row.
So with that in mind, then council can anticipate an adjustment to that expectation for the next budget cycle.
I would recommend that.
Thank you. Councilor Dutra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Those were my words. As a member of this commission, I did want you to note those two red shortfalls in revenue and also the green unbudgeted transfer. I wonder if manager. Yes, could you explain that unbudgeted transfer? That actually came out of reserves. So
to offset what other wise the city deficit, the police department had a deficit, and to subsidize the deficit overall for the city and the police department, we transferred $120,000 out of their police operating reserve into their operating budget line. So they had revenue coming in from reserves to offset some of the shortfalls, including the line revenue and the security clearance revenue.
Thank you. CEO Gowdy.
To partially offset the security clearance of 120 was not ameliorate 450.
Correct.
Does anyone have any additional questions or observations from that document? Councilor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So for the fall budget at $180,000 per percentage increase, is that going to have to be a 3% increase to serve an increase in the police budget demand? If you have 400,000 less, or 120 doesn't offset 450, so like somewhere in the fall, like the reserves are probably depleting, and this is going to have to be addressed in the fall. I'm assuming.
See about it? Well, there's only two ways to deal with it: either raise revenue or cut expenses, and that is something you or whoever's deliberating the budget is going to have to wrestle with in the fall.
Which is something the local police commission will be bringing forward later on in the year. Councilor Dallas.
Has there been a motion? Okay, great, thank you. The motion that council approve the 2024 audited financial statements as presented.
Thank you. So, yes, one item of note, council would like to see some perhaps more freedom of report, some addressing some of the issues that were presented by our audit team on a couple of areas that could possibly use some adjustment moving forward. At a reasonable expectation. See you, buddy.
It sounds like it, but could you, which issues raised by the audit?
One item that the council would like to see addressed is the checks and balances with respect to salaries and benefits oversight in our payroll specifically.
Yes, we are meeting about that right away.
Yeah, I mean, one of those things that with the new system, there was perhaps room for a little tweaking adjustment, and certainly like to be seen, which didn't want to wait for a full year to ensure that in fact they realized. So we're not going to put an exact date on it. Naturally, sooner better than later, but we want to be reasonable about it, just to fully appreciate that you're moving forward to correcting those areas that there's room for improvement. We do have a motion before us. Is there any additional input? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Thank you. So that moves us down to notices of motion. Oh, yes. Missed the big dollar amount there for the operating reserve. Who would care to make a motion? Councilor O'Shea.
Yes, Mayor Creasy, move that council directs administration to transfer $2,596 to the operating reserve.
So I think the materiality question just for our favorite being Connors, so the language had one for us too, but no, it's not. I appreciate that. Any input? Please go ahead. That
is approved.
Unanimously, thank you. And item number 7 for notices of motion, House Cross forward one. That we'll have them read into the record for next meeting.
Proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The council direct administration to return with a comparative analysis of the regulations around secondary suites on R1 lots, specifically the allowable size of secondary suites.
Thank you. Just listening of upcoming meetings. There are all regular council meetings in chambers here at 5:30 p.m. each of the following days. And those are May 12th, May 26th, and June 9th. Add those to your calendars. And I believe that concludes our business for the evening. Councilor Collison.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.